And as my friend Tim normally says, are we live? Yes, we are live. Welcome to the Tim and Jim show. And Tim is out celebrating his birthday, having fun with his family. I think he might be in Vermont or one of those states that's too cold for me most of the year. Might be okay right now. But really excited today. Have someone who I consider a friend. And yes, folks, we met on Twitter. So, for those of you that think Twitter is not something that works well, let me tell you, you're missing out. Twitter is a great place to start learning about people. Twitter chats are amazing. In fact, 3 o'clock, no, 2 o'clock today, the Winnie Sun tweet chat, which is a great Twitter chat. If you've never done that, go to hashtag Winnie Sun. But I think today's,
And an hour before that is the Growing Hope chat with
oh,
yours truly.
I did not know that. Now I have to put that on my calendar. I will definitely have to do that. And speaking of growing hope, I am really excited to have Kathryn Lang on the show today. Kathryn has been writing books like forever, I'll just say, and she is so funny. I love that. One of the things I remember when we first met on Twitter is she talks about snarky rainbows. So she's got a is sarcasm a good way to say it? But it's in a funny way.
It is sarcasm with a hug.
Sarcasm, I love that. Sarcasm with a hug. But Kathryn is with Peculiar Productions LLC, and now she's over just down the road a bit from me. Of course, it was funny. We talked about, in theory, she's about 2 to 3 hours from me near Huntsville. That's like where they have space camp. But what did you say? How long it would actually take to get from here to Atlanta?
About 4 days with the traffic.
There you go. There you go. So today we're going to talk about 8 weeks to write your book and turn your existing content into a book. And I was like, that's so true. So many of us have so much content and we like, oh, I don't know about this book writing thing, but there's tools and all things. So we're gonna talk about some of that. And Kathryn's even gonna have something that will help you get started that we're gonna talk about later. So right, that's the tease for those of you that might be watching on replay. And so it's great to be here, Kathryn. So Kathryn, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a natural born encourager. I came out of the womb, slapped the doctor on the rear, and told him he did a good job. I love words. I love playing with song lyrics and rewriting them to fit the moment. So I live in a musical. My whole family does this. So randomly, someone can break out while they're cooking eggs and put new lyrics into the eggs. It's just so it's a fun place to live, right? I want everybody to experience that. And my goal in life is to create world domination one person at a time.
I love that. I love that. I mean, why not, right? And I've always enjoy, like you said, you're definitely someone that's very upbeat, very encouraging. And so I know you encourage people like to share their stories. I mean, you also even have a podcast, don't you?
I do. I do. Growing Hope is my encouragement podcast. I used to do a Right Talk podcast that we're getting ready to relaunch. Everything changed in 2020 for us, like I'm sure it did everybody. We just got a tornado to boost, on top of everything else. A tornado literally landed on my office.
Wow.
So, and it was an in-home office, so it took her home at the same time.
Oh my gosh. So now you've been able to get everything back together. And you know what? I'd like you to share the story about your background there behind you because I thought that was actually very special. And as like we talked about, she doesn't want to use a green screen because she has too much hair. So instead, she's come up with a great alternative to that.
This is actually a quilt, or was going to be a quilt. My mom took the clothing from when I was a child and cut them out and made them into flowers and butterflies. That's one of her favorite things. And she was going to have it made into a quilt and give to me, but she passed away before she could make it into a quilt. So I am doing this to honor her. And really, Peculiar Productions was birthed because of my mom.
Mm.
Because after she had passed away in 2012, we found all this kind of creative stuff and, poetry and paintings and crafts like this. And they were tucked into a box. And she had done accounting all her life. And
Wow.
she had put her creativity and the essence of her and what I call her heart seed in a box. And she died with her dreams and her heart seed in a box. And
Mm.
I could not see anybody else doing that. So
Mm.
Peculiar Productions was born.
That's a really good point. I think that that's something that a lot of us struggle with, right? We get into, of course, sometimes we call it the rat race, or, at least now maybe people work from home more, so they're not always like stuck in traffic for, a couple hours each day, getting to the office. But so many people, right, end up doing something that um, provides them a living, but they're not living their life.
Correct.
And I think that's, like even for me, which I sometimes think about, when I retired from the Marines, one of the skills I got in the Marine Corps was government contracting, right? Sounds really exciting. And I was doing that for a little while before I started my marketing business. And it was one of those, even though I was really good at it, it was like, it wasn't something that just brought me joy and like, oh, I can't wait to go help somebody write another contract with the government.
Yep.
And and I get it, right? People say, "Oh, well, you've got to figure it out." And it seems like you have, right? Because you're doing something that you enjoy, and I think it's exciting what you've got going, and you've been doing this for a while, so you obviously know a bit about it. So let's get into, I guess one of the questions I have for you, Katherine, is what got you started with book writing?
Well, books themselves. I got started with books. I've always told stories. I've always written stories, and I started a blog in, I believe it was 2006. I
Hmm.
was an early starter on my blogs, and someone said you should take some of these blogs and offer them as an ebook to get people to sign up for you or sell them yourself. This was long before indie publishing became the thing to do. And so I did. I made an ebook out of some of the posts that I already had on my website. It was called Practical Proverbs, or actually at the time, I think it was a Proverbs Life. And folks found out about this and said, you know what I really want? I really want this in print. Can you do a print version of this book? And fortunately for me, Amazon had just started Create Space. And I was like, yeah, I can do this in print form. Let's do this in print form. So we went through the process. We learned all about it. We hired the editors and we hired the graphic designers and we built this book and we offered it in print form. And that was it. Once I realized it could be done, I was like, let's keep doing this. And so my stories that I would tell or that I would make up in my head as I was out walking around, which I did earlier today, I will put these in print form too. And then we thought, hey, why don't we help other people tell their stories? And book writing was born. I can't hear you.
I muted myself because I was coughing. I didn't
Oh,
want to. There we go. Right.
I
That's
bumped my computer. I thought I broke everything.
the beauty of live video. We forget little things sometimes. Now, what I was saying is that I think it's, that's one of the things, right? You love helping others. And I think we were talking before the show, you've actually written over 24 books.
I believe so. A lot of them are compilation books. I wrote an article for a local paper, but when I signed the contract with them, I made sure I retained the rights to what I wrote. So at the end of the year, we would take all of our columns, put them into a book, and we'd have a compilation of those inspirational articles. So it's amazing how much content we create, especially if we're working on live stream or we have a website or we have a business. We're constantly creating this content, and I wanted to repurpose it. I don't want it to be one and done. Words are so powerful. If we will just give them the wheels they will roll us into all sorts of possibilities.
That is so true. And so it kind of leads to my next question, Catherine, is that why should we consider writing a book?
I think everybody has a book. No, I know everybody has a book in them. Everybody has a story that needs to be told, and you're the only person that can tell your story. Now, it may be similar to another story, but it will never be in your voice. And if you're willing to tell your story and expose your heart just a little bit, you'll touch somebody else's heart. And even if the writing is just for your own cathartic purposes, you'll touch your heart. So books need to be written because hearts need to be touched and this world needs to be changed.
That's deep. I'm like, wow. Yeah, because I know, I think a lot of us struggle with like, oh, it just seems like it's a lot of work. And so when you told me that we could do this quickly, I was like, what? I This will be very interesting because I think it's definitely something people struggle with. But before I ask you about that, we're going to play a video from our friends at StreamYard that help power this show.
Yay.
Now Tim will normally start doing the Tim. I don't know if you've ever seen the Tim. So Tim, that's for
Well,
you. Yeah, and you were jamming. She was jamming out before brought her on out of the green room earlier today. So that was pretty funny. So this is something that I'm like very intriguing to me. So Catherine, can we really write a book in 8 weeks?
absolutely. And without even breaking anything. That's
And
what's so great about it. Every year in November, millions of people go after the novel that they've always wanted to write, and now the nonfiction book that they've always wanted to write in 30 days. If somebody can write a book in 30 days, you can absolutely write your book in 8 weeks.
yeah, and so what do you think? What are some of the processes in getting to that? I mean, do we have to know what the topic is before we start, or is that something we can do in the first week? Or
I think in the first in the course that I offer, that you can in the first week we can work through and find what your topic is going to be. But most of us, when we start thinking about writing a book, we have some story we want to tell or some point we want to get across or something that's come up as we were walking with our husband and making strange noises about squirrels. And so we how you do it, the process is going to be unique to everybody. I There is no one way to come to what your topic is going to be. The best way is if you're trying to do a business book or a book about your business, then you want to look at your brand voice, what's important to your brand. If it's a personal book, go back to the story. What story do you want to tell? This is the Katherine version of how to write a book. If you ask the experts, they're going to tell you to what is the pain point of the person. I write for me. I am my target audience, so it's very easy for me to know what my pain point is because I feel it every
mm,
day.
yeah, and I think too. Um, do you think it's easier to write fiction or nonfiction?
For me, it's either because I like words so much. Um, some people are naturally drawn to fiction stories. Some people are naturally drawn to nonfiction stories. But you can be a business and do either. And a really good
Mm.
example is Who Moved My Cheese?
Ah,
I mean, that's a fiction story, but it is definitely a business story and it can be applied in so many different aspects. So you're not limited. You can even take an old fairy tale. One I'm playing with right now is the grandfather talking to his grandson about the wolves. See, I think that would be a really good version for the Who's Moved My Cheese kind of book. So
hmm.
the ideas are all around you. It's just a matter of what do you want to write and then starting to write it.
Wow. Wow. And so I think that really kind of leads into the next question I have for you, and that's what are some tips to get us started? Because you're talking about some great ideas, things like I would have never I guess I didn't realize that Who Moved My Cheese was fiction.
I love it. Well, how you get started is totally up to you. I have in my hand the magic recipe box,
Ooh.
and in it, I put index cards with book topics. So when I'm sitting around thinking, or I'm talking to my husband, or I'm talking to my kid, and I force my kids to help me all the time. Um, when we come up with characters, I write them on an index card. Or when I come up with a topic idea or points I want to cover, I put them on an index card. And then I can gather all my index cards and start a book. For when I'm actually doing my first draft, I have a spiral notebook and I carry it with me if I'm out and about. So if I have 5 minutes, I can jot down, or if I'm sitting in a city council meeting and somebody says something really, really profound, I steal their dialogue.
Do
Not
you
that I did
change
that earlier this
you
week
change
or
and you
anything.
change the name to protect the innocent?
No, 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 no. You
Oh.
change the name to protect the author, who is definitely not innocent in any shape, form, or fashion.
Right. And I could
So,
definitely see that with you.
yeah, causing trouble wherever I go.
Yes.
Just sprinkling snarky rainbows all through the world.
Right.
But yeah, it's you get started. The key to getting started is to write a word.
To write a word
Yeah,
or
you write a word, and then you write another word, and then all of a sudden you have multiple words, and you're on your way to writing a sentence. And after the first sentence, you write another sentence.
it's
Don't
kind of
make
like
it
putting
complicated.
it's kind of like putting one foot in front of the other, I guess.
It's exactly like putting one foot in front of the other. The only way to write your story, to write your book, is to sit down and write your story and write your book. You don't worry about the semantics. You don't worry about the grammatical correctness. You don't even worry about whether or not it could be truer. You
Mm.
just write your story.
Yeah,
And then
and
when you get to the end, you can do the rest.
and I want to well one I want to say hi to my friend Ken Stoll. He worked with me in the Marine Corps many years ago. So Ken, great to see you stopping by. Appreciate that. Here's a question I have for you. Mike Alton, who is another person I a friend with, he talks about and I don't know if this would apply to fiction necessarily, but definitely nonfiction. But he's like, write the way you speak, as opposed to trying to make it, I don't know, sound very like Harvardish or something. What are your thoughts on that?
The only thing you have that's unique is your voice. And so if you try to steal somebody else's voice, it will never be quite right. It's like we were talking earlier that my husband was doing an actor as a squirrel, and it wasn't quite exactly that particular actor, but it was close enough for me to know. Still, he is most impressive when he is him, when it's his voice. And that is one of the things, that's why the snarky rainbow came about, is so many people kept trying to put me into a professional box, and I
Mm,
am so far from normal that there's not even a definition for what I'm not. So I was explaining to somebody that I'm an encourager, but I love sarcasm, and he said, "Now, hey, hang on a second. That's like trying to imagine a snarky rainbow." And I was like, "Oh my, that's what I am. I'm a snarky rainbow." And as soon as I quit trying to be anything other than a snarky rainbow, it changed my writing. It changed my, and when I go back and look at my earlier writings, that's what I was doing before
mm,
somebody told me I have to be professional. I have to be, in a suit and tie, and I have to be, whatever.
right. And Allegra Light says that they're most definitely interested, and thank you. So that's great to hear that. In fact, since you brought that up, Allegra, I'm going to share while we continue this conversation. We actually have a way for you to learn more about this 8 weeks to write. Just go to the website here, and I think what do you have there? You have like a free download they can
I
start
do.
with.
There's a free workbook that they can download that will help them understand, help you in this process of what is it I want to write. and even a little bit of discovering what is my voice, what is it that I'm uniquely designed. I call it your heart seed. What is it that's planted in you that's going to grow up into something that nobody else can grow up? And then it also includes the course. So you can get a free workbook, but you can also join the course.
And is the course 8 weeks, or am I
It is 8 weeks, and there'll be homework.
homework? Ooh,
You can't write your book if you don't write your book.
that's a good point. Yeah, what would be the point, right, if we didn't write our book? Um, so do you? So I know. I mean, you've talked about some like low tech stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Index cards, spiral notebook. What do you think about like we talked a little bit. Like, what if I were to just say record my voice on something like I know there's Otter, and I don't know, maybe people use Descript, where it'll turn my voice into text. So, I mean, do you think that's a good idea? Do you think is that a way to maybe get started as well?
If it works for you, then it works. It is writing your book is no more complicated than that. You find what works for you and you do it, and you do it until you're done. Once you finish the end, then the rest of the process can begin. My son starting his first book, he wants to do it digitally. I'm like, that's great, let's do that. And he kept trying to find my digital recorder, which apparently is somewhere in Kansas. But got the tornado reference, I hope.
Yeah.
So I told him to download Otter. I love Otter. Now, it doesn't understand every accent, because I have a friend that has a really heavy Southern accent, and Otter just goes, I don't even know what you're trying to say. I'm just going to make up words. So you got to make sure your digital voice to text is actually putting down what you're writing. But I think it's great. Whatever works for you is great, because it gets your words down. And that's the goal. That's the only way to write your book, is to get your words down.
Now, is there, I guess maybe like, is there a right length? I mean, sometimes you hear about people like, oh, you should write a really short ebook and just get it out there, or do you feel like, is there like well, let's say for nonfiction, right? Let's start with nonfiction, because fiction's, I think, in some aspects is a whole nother story. But is there like a good length? I mean, but maybe that's how you kind of help us, like how we get those words out, but then we kind of got to put some format to it, right?
You'll want to, it'll again depend on what you're writing, who you're targeting, and really what you want to do. So if we're doing a Bible study, the format's going to be very different for a Bible study than it would be for a reading book, because you want people to be able to stop and answer questions and fill in the blanks. If it's a devotional, it's going to be a little bit different. If it's a business book or self-help book, so each of them are going to have their own pattern, but ultimately we're telling stories. So tell your story, and when you're done telling your story, you stop. Then we can do the rest.
Right.
But don't worry about the length. If you worry about the length, then you'll be worried about the length and not about your story.
Ah. And Allegra said, "You do it until you're done." I think you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We make so many things. Everything is so simple in our lives. We just work really, really hard to make them complicated.
Mm.
And
That's
writing a book is no different. You write your book, you tell your story. When you're done, then we go through the process of creating a book to release either to the public or to an agent.
Interesting. And speaking of that, so you actually, Peculiar Productions is actually a book company, right?
Correct. We coach people through the process, one-on-one if they want. We do have that option. We haven't done that in the last couple of years, simply because we have not been settled, and we're still questionably settled, but we at least have our studio back and our backdrop back, and life's getting somewhat normal in my non-normal family. But we also help with releasing the book under our imprint, or we partner with people to publish their books. So we have a lot of different offers that we can work through. Our goal is to make sure that a story that needs to be, we want to touch hearts. And because we don't want to see anybody's heart seed packed in a box when they leave this world. We want to help those heart seeds grow up. So, however we can help those heart seeds grow up, that's what we're doing.
Wow. Yeah, I think I mean I love that. I guess I don't even know what the right word to say, but I love how you use that whole phrase, right? Helping people, their heart seed, right? Because that's deep, right? That's right in here. Um, what are maybe some other things that we should think about when we're writing a book? Is there any other tips that we should think about?
Yeah, some of the things you need to think about is, are you really going to write this book? You can talk about it till the cows come home. I've gone to a writing conference. I went for 20 years to the same writing conference. The same people were coming, and the same people were talking about writing their book for 20 years. So once you commit to writing your book, that's why it's good to have that accountability, that weekly accountability that we're going to make sure that we're getting the words written, because it's easy to put it off if you don't have somebody to help you along in the process. Also, find a place that you can write.
Mm,
Commit to a time that you'll write, whether it's a 15-minute window or it's a particular time in the day, and then start, writing. Really, know your voice, um, and really think about your story. Think about your story. What is it you really? What book do you want to read?
right. Now, and I guess even if you're like educating people, right? There's still a story, right? Like if you can tie in, I guess the story would be the examples of how either you've done something or how you helped other people do it. So like don't feel like it's just nothing but facts, like, here's how you do this and don't have any examples. Is that something you think that would make the book more effective?
Oh, absolutely. I know that when I wrote The Husband Whisperer, the 8 secrets to have the perfect spouse. It was because I was in the process of creating the perfect spouse, and just, here's a secret. It's not what you think. So, but I shared my stories. I was like, okay, this happened, or I'd share stories of friends that had gone through similar situations, and I steal from everything. I steal from every person, everything, every creature. If there's a squirrel out chasing its tail around the tree, I'm going to tell that story, because we want stories. We don't want facts. And if you'll add a story to your fact, people will remember your fact better.
Wow.
Even in educational books, if the educational information was wrapped around stories, kids want to learn it.
Hmm.
But if it's just a series of, dates, they don't have any interest.
Right. Well, and I think too, like even like you hear all these people talking about like the creator economy and oh, you need to do this on LinkedIn. I mean, I guess this is a fact, but it really kind of makes you think, right? Because now LinkedIn now has the haha emoji or funny emoji or whatever. Not everybody has it yet. I guess it's rolling out. And and it was funny because I did a post on Facebook. It's like, LinkedIn just got this new reaction for post. What do you think? And some of the people were like, oh, LinkedIn's becoming like Facebook. And then, but if you actually look at the information, there's like maybe 1 to 3% of the millions of people that are on LinkedIn that are actually posting on LinkedIn. So when I see that and you have people saying, "Oh, LinkedIn's becoming like Facebook," it's like, where are you getting this information from? Because I don't see it that way. It's kind of like everybody says Twitter's nothing but a cesspool. It's like I sometimes feel like we make
I'm on
things
Twitter, thank you very much.
right, right, and I think Twitter is a great thing. Oh, and Katie Jordan, so good to see you. She doesn't have it yet, but it's okay, Katie. I'm sure you will soon, and then you'll be laughing at all our good jokes that we've had on this show, and we'd appreciate it. Um, but yeah, so I think there are things that you have to have a story, right? Because all these people are like, oh, I'm going to just create content, but if there's nothing that draws us in, and a book is content. Um, I think that's and it's powerful, right? And I think it's also and Allegra's got a great comment. Let's see here. I think it's a fear of judgment that sometimes can stop someone telling their story. I know mine can help a lot of women, but at the same time, I guess I worry about being judged.
So here's my thought on that. And I was talking about this in a group of writers yesterday. When you have a story that's very personal, if you will tell it in third person, tell it as if someone else has gone through it, and maybe tweak some of the details of the story so that it's not your true story doesn't have to be 100% true. You can be raw and real without being completely naked. And I do tell people to write naked. And when I lived in the woods, it was a lot easier to do. It's a little harder in the city. But you don't want to hide yourself. But at the same time, if there's things that you're worried about being judged, either touch on that subject from another perspective or from another angle, or just embellish the details so that it no longer looks like you. You can still have the heart of your story without being detailed about the points of your story. Going back to what I said about changing the name to protect the author.
Right. And I think too a little bit of maybe what Allegra is feeling or seeing, and I think we all struggle with this. It's like imposter syndrome. Like, oh, well, nobody's gonna, listen to my story because I'm not, good enough. And so I mean, what do you think about that? Do you think that's part of it too, that we just don't think that, well, who's going to read my story or, and we're going to have, of trolls and so, yeah. And Allegra says, very scared of doing that. Thank you. Well, Allegra, I hope this is helping you. And so make sure, shameless plug, you go check out the course that Kathryn has. Cause I think I'm going to check it out, Kathryn, if that's okay with you. Cause I need to write a book. I told you that before. I keep making excuses.
I think you already have your book. And that's something else that we need to think about when we're getting started is some of us already have the book. Just like what became Practical Proverbs were blog posts. And I took the blog posts, same thing with my compilations from my newspaper articles. I would take the ones that had like themes and I would make them chapters. And then I would put material in between them to make it flow. So you take the blog post you already have and you add bridges between the topics and the blog post you already have. You already have a book. Ta-da! You just repurposed what you already had and maybe made it a little more. Same thing with your podcasts. Flow them through Otter and you probably have blog posts, ebooks, and books already piled up.
True. Yeah, even the episode Tim and I did a couple weeks ago where we were talking about the future of live streaming. There's probably a lot in there that we could put into a book if we were going to talk about that.
I mean, if nothing else, you probably already have an ebook that you could put together to make it easier for people to access that material.
Right. Wow, this has been amazing. So where do you want people to find you, Kathryn, besides your website at 8weekstowrite.com?
Well, I am on Twitter. I love Twitter. Anybody that doesn't like Twitter hasn't experienced it correctly.
Right.
It's kind of like fried green tomatoes. If you haven't had a good one, then you don't know what you're missing.
What's your handle there, Kathryn?
Kathryn C. Lang. Pretty much anywhere you can find me is Kathryn C. Lang. The only place I'm not Kathryn C. Lang is at Facebook, and I'm the Kathryn C. Lang.
The one and only, right?
That's right. Well, I was sitting in a meeting, and the lady, it was at church, and we've been going to the church for 3 years. And the lady in front of me turned around. She said, I don't think I've met you. I said, well, I'm Kathryn Lang. Some people know me. I said Kathy because that's what they call me locally is Kathy. And she said, I don't think I know you. I said, well, some people call me Kathryn Lang. She went, oh, are you the Kathryn C. Lang? I said, yes, I am. I am the Kathryn C. Lang. So I use that.
Oh my gosh.
But Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. And of course you can always email me. I am open to helping in any way I can. I have 3 boys, so I am very capable of saying no if I can't.
That's so true. And so I don't know if you've heard of this, but next week, Kathryn, we're going to have Mitchell Dong from Volley. Volley is a really cool app. It's kind of like the video version of Slack. I really have fallen in love for it. It's a great way to communicate with people asynchronously, right? That's a big word. I'd have to do a spell check on that, so don't ask me to spell it. But it, because video is such a great way to communicate, and I could see where you could use that even for maybe some of your author groups where you all can communicate, because I think sometimes we're all having challenges with these social platforms. Like, people will post in groups and you don't see the information. So we'll
Yeah,
be
I
talking
miss
about that.
Blab. I was
Oh,
I
yeah.
miss.
Actually, some people say that Volley reminds them a little bit of Blab. I mean, it's not live, but just or actually Marco Polo, if you're familiar with Marco Polo.
And we
Um,
played it every summer.
we did too. Yes, but I don't know. Maybe when I have grandkids, I'll play Marco Polo, but I'm in no rush to jump in a pool at this point to do that.
I did it yesterday, and when it's 90 degrees outside, you're like, kind
Yeah.
of melt into the pool.
Yeah. So don't forget, folks, make sure you check out Kathryn's course, 8weeks to write.com. You can get a free download at a minimum, so it'll help you get started on your writing journey. Kathryn, thank you so much for being here today, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you. And like I said, right, we started our friendship on Twitter, and now here we are on a live show. So make sure you check out, and you've got some pretty cool books you're writing right now, some fiction books that I found intriguing with the titles. When are they?
Yeah, we do. I just released the third of a trilogy. It's the Blackwater stories. They're from the Scouting Out Adventure series, and it follows three brothers as they uncover a rock out down at the Gulf Coast of Alabama that was uncovered by a hurricane, and they find special code and they have to follow it to the treasure. And it goes through three books, and we actually toured them as family. We went and toured all the forts along the coast. We toured the mounds. There's a bunch of Indian mounds in Alabama. And then we went into a lot of the caves.
Wow, that is very cool. And that's probably what helped you develop the story, right? Just
We
by
went
staying on.
because of the stories. That's my husband's like, write a book about this because I want to go. And then you can write it off.
And Katie says she am writing. Is that?
It is a hashtag
Ah,
on Twitter. Great hashtag. There's a lot of writing hashtags that you can follow and connect with. The indie author chat is later today. It follows Winnie Sun chat. So
okay.
there's some really good writing chat groups out there.
Is that the one with Tim Lewis?
Yes.
Yes, I know Tim very well. Well, this has been amazing. I'm definitely going to uh, probably start bugging you a little bit more, if that's
Okay.
okay. And
Absolutely.
this has been great. Thank you again, and thank you everyone who tuned in live or watching on replay. And if you have questions and watching on replay, make sure you put them in the chat, and we'll get back to you and get you an answer. So thanks again, Kathryn. Pleasure to see you. Hopefully, no more of those things with a T come around your neighborhood for a little while. And we'll see you all next week. Same time, same channel, or channels, I should say. We're multi-streaming. And take care, everyone. Bye-bye.